finally, it's time for us to take a look at the Season 3 finale of Teen Titans, Titans East. We're going to look at Part 1 in this video today and Part 2 next week. Mostly for simplicity's sake, I could roll the two episodes into a single review, but this is a really good self-contained setup episode. So I kind of feel like I wouldn't actually be doing it justice by just lumping it in with another episode. It's all set up for the actual final season finale, but it does have its own story, its own themes, and a beginning, middle, and end. So I feel like I'd be ripping it off if I didn't give it its own proper review. That said, the episode opens with Brother Blood standing on, it looked like a cliff side or something, or maybe it was the top of a building. I honestly couldn't tell. Overlooking Steel City, where Bumblebee and Aqualad, in their pursuit of Brother Blood, have decided to set up Titans East, bringing in Speedy from that episode that had Speedy in it, and characters who were invented for this show, if I'm not mistaken, who have since made it into the comics, at least a little bit. Moss and Manos, who I think they said in this they're Guatemalan. They're effectively powerless when they're not together, but as long as they're in physical contact with each other, they're a speedster with two heads who can work out problems by bouncing them off of each other. The only problem is they only speak Spanish, and I guess Cyborg doesn't have a universal translator in him because he can't understand what they're saying either. I know just enough Spanish to pick up on little bits and pieces of what they're saying. And I like them as characters. I think they're really cool. I think it's really neat that they were brought into this to fill out this team. The only thing that kind of bums me out about it is that the Teen Titans have a massive roster. I really would have liked to have seen another comic book Titan get brought into the story in some form, which is another reason why I'm still kind of salty that this Titans East thing didn't result in a branching story where we followed the Titans East sometimes and the original Titans sometimes, because as I mentioned back in, what was the name of that episode? Wavelength, I think. As I mentioned in my review of that episode, it really would have been cool if Cyborg had stayed on with Titans East and they had brought in another character or two from the Titans roster in the comics to fill his role on the original team. That said, the Titans East are attempting to build their own Titans Tower. It's not going well because they don't get along. They get roped into a conflict with a guy who we saw Brother Blood brainwashing at the beginning of the episode. Steamroller, I think was his name. He's a big construction worker guy who I think was also supposed to be a robot. It's kind of unclear. Anyway, they go to fight this guy, not realizing that he's under Brother Blood's control, and they don't do well. They don't know how to fight as a team. Like, obviously they all know how to fight, but they don't know how to fight together, and they end up getting in each other's way until Cyborg takes command and organizes them into an effective team pretty effortlessly, actually. He's a natural at it, which makes sense. I've been saying from the very beginning of the show that Cyborg is a very effective leader, that if something ever happened to Robin, he would be there to step up and take command. This proves that that's clearly an aspect of his characterization that they have had in mind since the series started. During this fight, though, Steamroller interfaces with Cyborg's systems, and Cyborg, I think, thought that he was just trying to override Cyborg's systems and beat him that way, but really, he was just trying to get the access codes for the new Titans Tower from Cyborg so that Brother Blood and his forces could infiltrate it without setting off security. It would seem that Brother Blood came here knowing that he was being tracked by Aqualad and Bumblebee, knowing that they would call in Cyborg if they got wind of him, and planned all of this to separate Cyborg from the other Titans, possibly even manipulated things from the sidelines to get the Titans East together so that he could seize control of their tower as his new Hive Academy and even brainwash the Titans East and make them his students. And that's what he does. He breaks in with these cloaked figures who have been flanking him the entire time, who are unveiled and revealed to be Hive-themed, fully robotic replicas of Cyborg, because Brother Blood has an eidetic memory and was able to memorize Cyborg's blueprints after seeing them only once. Holy crap. that makes this even more personal for Cyborg than it already was. And in the chaos that all of this causes, and with the threat of this robot army looming over them, despite the fact that the robots, while they're durable enough and have roughly the same firepower as Cyborg, are not as durable as Cyborg, the Titans East, they kind of lose it. The team loses cohesion, they all split up and go their separate ways, and they all do well enough. But we do see each group of them, I say group because it's Bumblebee by herself, and Speedy by himself, and Aqualad by himself, but Moss and Manos are together, obviously. We see each group of them overtaken by the robots. Cyborg, though, fights a bunch of them, and then fights Brother Blood, sacrificing his power core to blast Brother Blood and seemingly defeat him. We get a scene where the Titans East are apparently okay and manage to recharge him, and he even takes them up on an offer that they made to him earlier in the episode to stay and be their leader, remaining behind, telling Robin he's quitting the team. Or I guess just outsourcing himself to a different branch of the team. I don't really know what you would call that. But the very last shot of the episode is a reveal that the other Titans East members are under Brother Blood's mind control. And I have a couple of problems with this from a logistics standpoint. First of all, I thought Bumblebee couldn't be controlled by Brother Blood, but maybe he found a way to overcome that. I don't get, though, why he's deceiving Cyborg here, because they even mention that this is a deception and that Cyborg has fallen for it so far. Like, I get that Brother Blood wants to bring Cyborg under his control because he feels like Cyborg has beaten him worse than any other person has ever beaten him. I would argue that Bumblebee beat him worse, honestly, because she managed to trick him for so long, but whatever. Like, I get that. I get that he wants to make Cyborg one of his students as revenge for that, but I don't get why he's deceiving him instead of trying to control him directly. I can't believe that, knowing Cyborg's specifications so intimately, he wouldn't know some way to control him, and maybe we find out in the next episode that he does, but if we do, I don't remember, and I haven't rewatched it yet, so I wouldn't know. It strikes me as odd, is all. Like, maybe he gets some sick satisfaction out of tricking Cyborg the way that Cyborg tricked him. But again, I would argue that Cyborg didn't trick him as badly as Bumblebee did. Maybe he just had more of an emotional connection to Cyborg than he did to Bumblebee, and that's why he seems so obsessed with tricking Cyborg into working for him. Maybe this is actually more personal for Brother Blood than it is for Cyborg himself. I don't know, it's super interesting. I expected Blood to be smarter than this. I didn't expect him to give Cyborg a chance to resist him after this. And yet, that seems to be exactly what he's done. Again, I haven't actually watched the next episode, so maybe it'll all come together better there. And it's not as if I think this is a bad episode. I think this is a really good episode. It's fantastic setup for what will be the ultimate season finale episode. I really like all the members of Titans East. I like how, even though they have a 5-person team like the original Titans, you could envision Cyborg staying with them, since their 4th and 5th members are effectively a single member, since in order to be effective, they have to act as a single unit. I like how seamlessly Cyborg seems to fit with this team. I like how there's so much disharmony between them when he isn't leading them, and there's so much harmony between them when he is. The dynamic is just, it's exquisite. The only issue I have with this particular beat of this story arc is that I don't think Blood is behaving as intelligently as we've come to know him to behave. I also kind of feel like this episode, by revealing that Brother Blood has memorized Cyborg's blueprints, has kind of artificially extended this grudge between Blood and Cyborg, roping Cyborg back into it when his part in it came to a natural end at the end of Wavelength. I guess that's more evidence to support that this is more personal at this point for Blood than it is for Cyborg, but it still strikes me as odd that this is supposed to be Cyborg's story, and yet he had to be dragged back into it. He had to have an emotional reason to be obsessed with Blood again, thrust back upon him to draw him back into this arc. That said, clearly I don't remember this episode as well as I thought I did, because a lot of stuff in this one surprised me, and the more I think about it, the more I don't remember the specific details of the next one, so getting to rewatch this episode was certainly a treat. and I am super psyched to watch the next. As per usual, guys, I'd like to know, what did you think of Titans East Part 1 if you haven't seen it? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below, or over on my Discord, link in the description. But either way, this has been AJ22, and I will talk to you guys later.